Hello everyone, welcome to the Pocket-Sized Tales YouTube channel. My name's Edward, and I'll be narrating today's story. If you're new here, we write and narrate our own stories. Please purchase a t-shirt from the Pocket Shop or leave a super thanks if you'd like to support the channel. Other than that, please like, comment, subscribe, and share the content with your friends and family. Also, hit that bell notification so you'll be alerted when a new story is uploaded. Thanks everyone. Now on to the story. The Crimson Tapestry. Part 1. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long, ominous shadows over the crowded flea market. Tattered tents and makeshift stalls lined the narrow pathways, their wares a mishmash of old trinkets, weathered books, and faded paintings. The air was thick with the scent of incense, the vendors' chants of exotic origins, and the restless energy of the crowd. In the heart of this labyrinthine market, amidst the kaleidoscope of curiosities, Thao stood like a solitary island of purpose. He was a man of contrasts, tall, handsome, and broad-shouldered. His lean, chiseled frame exuded an air of quiet strength, each movement possessing a graceful precision. His deep-set, contemplative eyes held a world of untold stories, their magnetic intensity drawing others into their depths. Thao's raven-black hair fell in silky waves, framing a face marked by finely sculpted features. He had an enigmatic smile that hinted at both mischief and wisdom. Thao's gaze settled on a peculiar stall. The vendor was an elderly woman, her skin lined with age, but her eyes shone with a mystic fire. She sat in the midst of Hmong artifacts, talisman, relics, and vibrant textiles. Approaching the stall, Thao couldn't help but be drawn to an old and ragged tapestry hanging behind the old woman. The dark crimson fabric seemed to pulse with life. The vivid colors of its embroidery contrast sharply with the somber surroundings. It depicted a nightmarish tableau, a shadowy forest, grotesque figures, and an ominous moon casting an eerie glow overlooking other disturbing images. "Ah, you have a keen eye, young one," the old woman said, her voice a whisper of wind through the trees. "That's a tapestry of ancient Hmong legend said to carry great power." Thao's fingers itched to touch it, to trace the morbid scenes. "What kind of power?" he asked, intrigued. The old woman's eyes gleamed knowingly. "The power to grant any wish," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial hush. "But beware, young one, for the wish isn't without a price. A grave price." Thao's curiosity burned. "How much for it?" he asked, reaching for his wallet. The old woman shook her head, her bony fingers clasping his wrist like a vice. "It's not for sale," she said, her voice insistent. "Not for money, anyway. But for the right soul, perhaps." Thao frowned, unsure of her cryptic words. "What do you mean?" The old woman leaned closer, her breath carrying the scent of ancient herbs. "I sense something in you, something restless and hungry," she whispered. "Take it, young one, and heed my words. When the moon hangs low, burn incense and joss paper, call upon the spirits within. They will grant your wish, but remember darkness always demands its due." Thao hesitated for a moment, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Then, with a resolute nod, he agreed. The old woman released his wrist. He tried to hand her a large wad of cash, but the woman refused it. The tapestry was his, and as he left the market, he could feel the eyes of the ancient figures within it boring into his soul. He couldn't wait to hang it in his room, to unlock its secrets, and see if it could grant him the one wish he longed for above all others. Part 2. The grocery store buzzed with the steady hum of fluorescent lights. Shelves of neatly arranged goods stretched out in orderly rows, and the air carried the scent of fresh produce mingled with the crispness of chilled air. It was a familiar place, a corner of the world where Thao had stopped by countless times. Brenda stood behind the counter. She was naturally cute without a ton of makeup with a petite build. Her striking hazel eyes held a depth of intelligence and resilience, and her chestnut hair, framing her face in loose waves, accentuated her delicate features. Brenda's captivating smile exuded warmth and authenticity. Thao approached the counter, trying to mask his eagerness beneath a casual demeanor. "Hey, Brenda," he greeted her with a friendly smile. Brenda looked up, returning the smile with genuine warmth. "Thao, it's been a while. What brings you here today?" "Just passing by," Thao replied, though he deliberately made the detour to see her. "How's business?" Brenda glanced around the store, a touch of weariness in her voice. "Same as always," she said, "but it keeps things running." Their conversation revolved around everyday topics, family, the weather, while Thao's heart raced in anticipation of what he wanted to say next. "So I'm having a birthday party at my place this weekend, and I'd love for you to come." "I'd be honored. I'll do my best to make it." Brenda smiled. The words should have thrilled him, but Thao couldn't ignore the subtle hesitation in Brenda's tone, the cautious look in her eyes. He knew he had to address it to clear the air. As the last customer left, Thao leaned in, his voice low and earnest. "Brenda, there's something I've wanted to discuss with you," he began. She met his gaze, curiosity mixed with a hint of apprehension. "What is it, Thao?" He took a deep breath, his voice filled with sincerity. "It's about us. We've known each other for so long, and I can't help but feel there's something more between us. I've always cared about you, Brenda, more than just as a friend." Brenda's gaze shifted to the counter, her emotions in turmoil. She said, "I value our friendship. I'm not sure if we should complicate things." Thao frowned and gritted his teeth, her words stinging him painfully. "Come on, Brenda. Give me a chance. At least consider it," Thao said. Brenda's eyes wandered and she shifted uncomfortably, searching for the right things to say before bringing her eyes back to his. Her gaze softened, a glimmer of hope shining in her eyes. "I'll think about it," she said, her words a fragile promise. "But for now, let's focus on your birthday party. I'll be there and we can talk more then." Thao smiled, a mixture of gratitude and determination in his heart. "Thank you, Brenda," he said sincerely. "That means a lot to me." Leaving the grocery store, Thao couldn't shake the feeling that the upcoming party was a pivotal moment, a chance to prove not only to Brenda, but to himself that he could become the man he aspired to be for the woman he had always loved. Part 3. The night unfolded like a dream, a wild, raucous dream. Thao's backyard was a carnival of lights and laughter. Music throbbed through the air as friends and strangers mingled, their voices rising above the pulsating beats. It was the kind of party that could only happen when the stars aligned and the spirits of fun were at their most mischievous. Thao navigated through the crowd, a drink in hand, his laughter blending with the cacophony. He lost count of how many people were there, some he knew well, others mere acquaintances, drawn to the festivities like moths to a flame. The night was alive with energy, an intoxicating blend of anticipation and hedonism. As the evening wore on, Thao's excitement began to wane. Brenda hadn't shown up, and her absence gnawed at him. He'd invited her, pinned his hopes on her presence, and now it seemed she might not come at all. He shook off his disappointment and decided to distract himself. Thao headed for the backyard hot tub, where two vivacious young women were already making themselves comfortable, their laughter floating on the steamy air. He joined them without hesitation, his charismatic charm opening doors that he'd grown accustomed to. The trio flirted and splashed in the warm water, the moonlight casting shimmering ripples across their bare skin. Thao soaked in the attention like a sponge, allowing himself to get lost in the moment as they expressed their shared lust for one another through an entanglement of lips and tongues. The man's worries were completely forgotten in that instant. But then, as if fate had a cruel sense of timing, Brenda appeared. She stepped onto the patio with a gift box in hand, her presence like a sudden shift in the atmosphere. Thao's heart leaped in surprise, and he froze as if caught in the headlights of an oncoming train. Brenda's gaze locked onto the hot tub and the trio inside it, and a hint of something unreadable flickered in her eyes. But her reaction was not what he had anticipated. She didn't storm off in a jealous rage or confront him with anger. Instead, she simply turned and walked away, disappearing into the throng of partygoers, leaving Thao with a sense of bewilderment. Drenched in embarrassment, Thao scrambled out of the hot tub, his mind racing. He knew he had to find Brenda to explain, to salvage what remained of their evening. He navigated the sea of guests, searching for her amidst the swirling colors and laughter. Eventually, he located her in his office, a small, dimly lit room tucked away from the party's chaos. "Brenda," Thao began, his voice trembling with both remorse and longing. She turned to face him, her expression composed but distant. "Thao," she replied, her tone measured. "I see you're having a great time." Thao swallowed hard, the weight of his actions settling heavily upon him. "I can explain," he stammered. Brenda raised an eyebrow, her eyes steady upon him. "Explain what?" Thao took a step closer, his voice filled with sincerity. "I want you to know how I feel, Brenda," he said. "I've cared about you for a long time, more than just as a friend." Brenda regarded him, her gaze unwavering. "You're a wonderful person," she said, her voice gentle but resolute. "I thought about your proposal, but I don't think we should complicate things. I don't want to be just another person you're with. I'd only get in the way of your lifestyle." Thao's heart ached as he tried to convey the depth of his emotions. I can change," he insisted, desperation tinging his voice. "I want to change for you. I'm not looking for a casual fling. I want something real, something meaningful." Brenda sighed, her gaze softening, but her resolve remained unshaken. "I've heard those promises before," she said, her voice filled with both caution and longing. "I've seen people pledge to change, only to go back to their old ways. I don't want to get hurt." Thao nodded, the weight of his past mistakes heavy upon him. "I understand," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "But I'm willing to prove it to you, Brenda. Give me a chance to show that I can be the man you deserve." Brenda offered a faint smile, but her eyes held an unyielding resolve. "Thao," she began, her tone firm, "I appreciate your sincerity, but I want to be clear. I don't see us being more than friends. I've made my decision, and I don't want you to think there's a chance for anything beyond that." Thao's heart sank at her resolute words, but he respected her honesty. He nodded, a mixture of disappointment and acceptance washing over him. "I understand," he replied, his voice trembling with a hint of sadness. "I won't push you into something you're not comfortable with." Brenda handed him the gift and left the room. He was left alone with the sound of the party outside, the music and laughter a stark contrast to the complex emotions swirling within him. Thao clutched the unopened gift to his chest, a reminder of the woman he'd always loved. Part 4. The party raged on, a cacophony of laughter and music, but Thao felt disconnected from it all. Brenda's rejection lingered in the back of his mind like a shadow, tainting the festivities. He wandered through the crowd, engaging in conversations he barely registered. When the last guests had left for the night, Thao retreated to his room. Laying in bed, he stared at his newly acquired tapestry for a while, contemplating if he should utilize its powers. The old red cloth hanging on the wall seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. Its eerie scenes, once disturbing, now held a strange allure, beckoning him to unlock their secrets. Thao followed the old woman's instructions carefully. He lit incense and joss paper, the room filling with the pungent aroma of offerings to the spirits. He stood before the tapestry, his heart pounding with anticipation, and began to chant the words she taught him. As he spoke the incantation, the room seemed to grow colder, and the shadows cast by the tapestry deepened. Thao's voice wavered, but he pressed on, his desire for Brenda's love fueling his determination. Suddenly, the tapestry seemed to come alive. The figures within it writhed and shifted, their grotesque forms twisting in unnatural ways. A gust of cold wind filled the room. Thao shuddered, watching in awe and fear as the flames from the candles flickered intensely. "What is your wish? What is your wish? What is your wish?" came whispers, echoing throughout the room from everywhere at once. The man looked around but saw nothing. However, the chilly presence remained as the flames from the candles continued to dance. All the while, the echoes from the whispers repeated themselves like a broken record. Thao swallowed hard, his heart pounding in his chest. "I wish for Brenda to love me forever," he replied. his voice quivering with both hope and anxiety. "Your wish is granted. Your wish is granted. Your wish is granted," the whispers declared, their words still echoing through the room. As suddenly as the haunting presence had appeared, it dissipated, leaving Thao alone in the dimly lit room. He gazed at the tapestry, a sense of both elation and unease washing over him. Thao climbed into bed, the weight of the wish heavy on his mind. Brenda's image filled his thoughts, and he couldn't help but wonder if his desire for her love had unleashed forces beyond his control. Sleep eluded him that night, and as the first rays of dawn broke through the window, he was left with a profound sense of uncertainty about what the future held. Part 5. A week after the wish, Thao's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Brenda, and his heart raced as he read her words. She agreed to meet him for coffee, a simple gesture that held profound significance for him. They chose a quiet cafe in the heart of the city, where the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air. Thao arrived early, his nerves making him fidget in his seat as he waited for Brenda's arrival. When she walked through the door, Thao couldn't help but admire her. She looked radiant, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders, and her smile warm and inviting. She greeted him with a friendly hug, and they settled into a cozy corner of the cafe. As they sipped their coffee, they fell into easy conversation. Thao shared stories of his farm and the challenges he faced, while Brenda talked about her work and her dreams for the future. It was a simple, heartfelt exchange, and Thao couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope that their connection was deepening. Weeks turned into months as Thao and Brenda continued to see each other. They went on hikes, explored the city, and shared late-night conversations stretching until dawn. Thao felt a growing intimacy between them, a bond that went beyond mere friendship. Part 6. Time passed, and Thao and Brenda's love flourished. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, and they found solace in each other's arms. But as the seasons changed, so too did the nature of their relationship. At first, Thao embraced in the warmth of Brenda's affection. He cherished the way she looked at him, the way she laughed at his jokes, and the way she made him feel like he was the most important person in the world. But as the days turned into weeks, a subtle change began to take hold. Brenda's love for Thao seemed to intensify to a degree that left him feeling smothered. She called him incessantly, bombarding his phone with messages and voicemails when he didn't answer. She showed up unannounced at his house, his farm, and even his family's gatherings. At first, Thao brushed it off as a sign of her devotion, but soon it became clear her attachment was becoming unhealthy. One evening, as Thao sat alone in his living room, his phone buzzed with yet another message from Brenda. He sighed, his frustration mounting as he read her words. "Where are you? I need to see you. It's been hours since we talked." Thao knew he needed to address the issue, so he called Brenda and arranged to meet at their favorite park. As they sat on a bench beneath the rustling leaves, Thao took a deep breath and looked into Brenda's eyes. "Brenda," he began, his voice gentle but firm. "We need to talk about what's been happening lately. I appreciate your love and your affection, but it's starting to feel overwhelming." Brenda's eyes welled with tears and her voice quivered as she responded, "I just love you so much, Thao. I can't bear the thought of losing you." Thao reached out and took her hand, his heart aching at the sight of her distress. "I love you too, Brenda," he said, his voice filled with empathy. "But love should never feel like a burden. We need to find a balance, a way for both of us to be happy." Brenda nodded, her tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'll try," she whispered, her voice barely audible. For a time, it seemed as though they had resolved the issue and their relationship returned to a semblance of normalcy. But the seeds of obsession had already been planted, and they would soon bear bitter fruit. One evening, Thao found himself at a local bar nursing a drink and trying to unwind. He had been feeling suffocated by Brenda's constant presence, and he needed some space to clear his head. It was there that he met Jade. Jade was an exquisite embodiment of grace and vivacity. Her almond-shaped eyes, radiant and expressive, seemed to hold the secrets of countless stories. They shimmered with a mischievous glint, reflecting her playful spirit and boundless charisma. Her chestnut hair cascaded in lustrous waves, framing a face adorned with a captivating smile that could light up the darkest of rooms. There was an undeniable magnetism in her presence, an effortless fusion of elegance and approachability, drawing Thao towards her like a bee to honey. As they talked, Thao found himself drawn to Jade's allure, and before long they were sharing an intimate connection. He knew it was a mistake, a betrayal of Brenda's trust, but in that moment, he felt an overwhelming need for freedom. Little did he know Brenda had been watching from a distance, her heart shattered by the sight of Thao with another woman. Her love turned to jealousy, and her jealousy turned to rage. The next morning, Thao awoke to a series of frantic messages from Brenda, each one more desperate and threatening than the last. She discovered his infidelity, and her fury knew no bounds. As more time passed, Brenda's obsession with Thao intensified. She stalked him everywhere, leaving him no respite from her watchful gaze. It got so bad he often turned his phone off and hid at his friends' and family's houses, never staying in the same place twice. It began to take a toll on the man, and he could no longer sustain that way of living. He even tried to undo his wish using the tapestry to no avail. Thao knew he had to end their relationship, for both their sakes, but he feared what Brenda might do in her manic state of desperation. In the dimly lit restaurant, Thao and Brenda sat at a corner table, the air thick with tension. The soft hum of conversations and clinking of cutlery surrounded them as they attempted to have a civil meal. Brenda's elegant demeanor, once filled with warmth and affection, now held an icy reserve, mirroring the frosty atmosphere between them. Thao knew this was the moment. He had to end their relationship. Taking a deep breath, he looked into Brenda's eyes. "Brenda," he began, his voice measured. "There's something I've been wanting to address for a while now. I need to get it off my chest." Brenda's gaze met his, her expression guarded. "Go on," she replied, her tone cautious. Thao chose his words carefully, knowing the delicate balance he needed to strike. "I think it's best if we go our separate ways," he said, his voice filled with regret. Brenda's eyes widened, her composure shattering like fragile glass. "What?" she exclaimed, her voice rising. "You're breaking up with me?" Thao nodded, his heart heavy with the pain of his decision. "I'm sorry, Brenda. It's for the best." But Brenda's shock quickly gave way to fury. She slammed her hand on the table, causing glasses to rattle and nearby diners to turn their heads. "You coward!" she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "After everything we've been through, you're just going to abandon me?" Thao tried to maintain his composure, but Brenda's escalating anger was impossible to ignore. "Brenda, please," he implored. "Let's not make a scene." But it was too late. Brenda's emotions had erupted like a volcano, and she launched into a tirade of accusations and insults that reverberated through the entire restaurant. Her voice rose to a crescendo as she hurled words like daggers, each one more cutting than the last. Their argument escalated into a physical confrontation as Brenda, her face contorted with rage, lunged at Thao. Her nails scraped against his skin, leaving bloody marks in their wake. The restaurant staff rushed to intervene, attempting to restrain Brenda as Thao struggled to protect himself. Amid the chaos, the staff offered to call the police, but Thao, his face bloodied and humiliated, declined their offer. With one last look of resignation, he pushed away from the table and left the restaurant, leaving behind a trail of shattered emotions and a scene that would be remembered by all who had witnessed it. Part 7. The days that followed were a torturous blur for Thao. He had no way of contacting Jade, the woman he had unwittingly involved in his tangled web of obsession and danger. Brenda's ominous text messages continued to arrive, each one a chilling reminder of the peril hanging over them all. Then, one evening, as Thao paced his living room, his phone buzzed with a message that sent a shiver down his spine. It was a picture message, and when he opened it, his heart plummeted to his stomach. The image displayed a bloodied and bruised Jade, bound to a chair in a dimly lit room, her eyes filled with terror. Thao's hands trembled as he realized the gravity of the situation. Brenda had kidnapped Jade, and he was trapped in a nightmare of his own making. The text that accompanied the image only heightened his dread. "Meet me tonight or she dies." Thao knew he had no choice. He had to confront Brenda and do whatever it took to save Jade's life. With shaky fingers, he dialed Brenda's number, his voice unsteady as he agreed to her demand for a meeting. As night fell, Thao drove to the location Brenda had specified, a secluded cabin deep in the woods. The ominous silhouette of the building loomed in the darkness, its windows reflecting an eerie, flickering light from within. Thao entered the cabin cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest. Inside, the room was adorned with candles, their flickering flames casting eerie shadows on the walls. At the center of the room, a table was set for two, adorned with fine china and crystal glasses. Brenda stood at the far end of the table, her appearance startlingly different from the woman Thao had known. Her face was heavily made up, her hair meticulously styled, and she wore a dress that accentuated her every curve. But it was her expression that chilled him to the bone, a mixture of love, anger, and madness. In her hand was a pistol pointed at him. "Thao," she purred, her voice a strange blend of affection and menace. "I'm so glad you could make it. I made your favorite steak." Thao's gaze shifted to Jade, who was bound and gagged in a chair, her eyes pleading for help. He felt a surge of desperation, knowing he had to play along to keep Brenda's guard down. "Brenda," he began, his voice trembling, "please, let her go. We can talk about this." Brenda's eyes narrowed and she shook her head, her demeanor shifting between vulnerability and fury. "You don't understand," she said, her voice quivering. "You've hurt me so much. You don't know what it's like to love someone so deeply, only to be betrayed." Thao nodded, feigning remorse as he took his seat at the table. He knew he had to tread carefully to find an opportunity to disarm Brenda and free Jade. They began their tense and awkward dinner. Brenda placed the gun on the table within her reach. As they ate, she ranted about her love for Thao, recounting every perceived wrong he inflicted upon her. Her words were a chilling mixture of affection and rage, and Thao struggled to maintain his composure. "I'm sorry, Brenda," he said, his voice laced with guilt. "I never meant to hurt you." Brenda's tears flowed freely, mascara running down her face as she cried. "Thao," she sobbed, "I just want us to be together forever. Can't you see that?" Thao nodded, his heart aching for the woman he had once loved. He bided his time, waiting for the right moment to make his move. As Brenda's emotional outpouring continued, Thao saw his opportunity. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, he lunged for the gun on the table, their hands clashing in a desperate struggle. She was incredibly strong for someone of her size. The table overturned, sending dishes and glassware crashing to the floor, and the gun skittered out of reach. Brenda's desperation turned to fury, and she reached for a steak knife with a manic determination. Thao tried to wrest it from her grasp, but she managed to stab him several times in his abdomen and chest. In a final, desperate act, Thao managed to grab the gun just as Brenda lunged at him with the knife. The gun discharged, and the deafening sound echoed through the cabin. When the dust settled, Thao lay mortally wounded, his vision fading as Brenda's lifeless body lay beside him. In their final tragic struggle, they had destroyed each other, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. As Thao's consciousness slipped away, he felt a strange sensation, as if he were being drawn into a vortex of darkness. And then, in the depths of his fading awareness, he saw it. The tapestry, its once horrifying scenes, now depicting the twisted love story that had unfolded. And as the last threads of his life unraveled, the image of Thao and Brenda appeared on the tapestry, forever bound in a love that had spiraled into madness and tragedy.